You know that Israel talks a lot about how amazing, well, before this event, how amazing their surveillance is, how incredible the IDF is, the Mossad is, how much they can surveil everyone, how they know what everyone's doing at all times, which, by the way, sounds like a dystopian hellhole, but they're very proud of it. And so now with the events that just took place, the Hamas attack, it showed Israel to not actually know where Hamas is or what's going on, if you believe the straightforward story of it. And so Caitlin Johnstone makes this point. Israeli intelligence suddenly knows exactly where Hamas is. And this is, if you've been following mainstream media, Israel is now saying that they know where Hamas is, and they're every one of these buildings that they're bombing. And I've brought you video of just full-on apartment complexes being pancaked to the ground, just utterly obliterated into nothing. There are whole blocks of Gaza that are just wiped out. And Israel is not claiming, hey, we just want to kill everyone we can. They're claiming, oh, we know Hamas is there, or Hamas was near there, or we're eliminating Hamas's hiding places. All of these things they say. And Caitlin Johnson makes the point, wait a second, you just said you didn't know that Hamas was planning this major attack for over 10 years or whatever, however long they've been doing it. You had no idea what was going on there. But oh no, we know exactly where they are, and we know which tunnels underground they're in right now. Caitlin Johnstone says, it's interesting how last week Israel had no idea what Hamas was up to, and yet this week they know every mosque, school, and hospital that Hamas is hiding in. When you live under an empire of lies, you'll be asked to believe a lot of very stupid things. The dumbest thing we're being asked to believe this week is that Israel's intelligence services are simultaneously so incompetent that Saturday's Hamas attack took them completely by surprise, but also so competent, so impressive, that all the buildings they're destroying with their relentless bombing campaign in Gaza are directed solely at Hamas. The phrase Hamas targets, and this is such a good point, has rippled through our media. Every media is talking about Hamas targets. It's been all over the news media the last few days in reference to the ongoing attacks on Gaza, which have, as of this writing, killed over 1,500 Palestinians. I believe they already say it's over 1,700, and that's just official estimates. I wouldn't at all be surprised if it's way over that. A third of them children. Israel here's a quote from CNN, a CNN headline. Israel conducts large-scale strikes on Hamas targets. Here's one from ABC News. Israel conducts large-scale strike on Hamas targets. Here's one from Washington Post. Israel says it dropped 6,000 bombs so far against Hamas targets. And then Caitlin Johnstone says, gosh, Israel must have really great visibility into Gaza to know that each of those 6,000 bombs was aimed at Hamas targets and not just civilian buildings. And to me, there's two possibilities, but for the truth behind this, as to how these two things that are completely opposite could be true. There's two possibilities. I actually think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but here are the two possibilities. One is Israel has no fucking clue what Hamas is doing at all. They didn't know that this attack was going to happen at all. They didn't know that this many Hamas fighters could get into Israel, could get through the barricade, etc. So they really had no idea what Hamas was doing. That's explanation one. And now, of course, they're lying because they just want to bomb the fuck out of Gaza. And so they're saying, oh, no, we're hitting the Hamas targets when they have no idea where Hamas is. So they don't have Hamas targets. They just want to bomb things. That's possibility number one. Possibility number two is that Israel knows exactly where Hamas is at all times. Their surveillance is incredible, and they know every movement of every Hamas fighter, which, by the way, a Hamas fighter, many of them are just, 16, 18-year-olds with a gun. So the idea that this is, the fucking CIA is ridiculous. But anyway, they know every Hamas fighter. They know where they are at all times, which would mean that they knew the attack was going to happen, and they allowed the Hamas attack because it is useful to them. Obviously, they've wanted to obliterate Gaza for years now, and they've been doing it in other slower means, such as cutting off food and water and medicine. But uh, this has allowed them to get kind of everything they want, as well as support from most of the world or much of the world, etc. So those are kind of the two possibilities for these two things that don't make sense to make any sense to be reality. Um, I think that the truth is probably somewhere in between. That uh, Israel likely has enough surveillance to know when a larger attack by Hamas is going to happen. And they probably, to some degree, allowed this attack to happen. Maybe they didn't know how extreme it would be. Maybe they didn't know how much firepower they had. So maybe it was way bigger than they thought it'd be. But, and as I've covered in previous live streams this week, there are former IDF soldiers that have said that they knew that uh, there's been a lot of theft from Israeli army bases of weaponry. And how do you steal a lot of weapons from one of the largest, most prestigious, so-called, most accomplished, most well-funded militaries in the world? Well, often you have a little bit of support from those who want you to steal weapons. Anyway, so to get back to the point, I think Israel likely had a fair amount of surveillance on what was going to happen. Probably didn't know every detail. Um, that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it okay. It doesn't mean I support the killing of any innocent civilians. That's not the point. But so they likely knew some of that. Right now with this bombing, they likely know where some Hamas fighters are. But the other thing is, like, a Hamas fighter, like I just said, could be an 18-year-old with a gun. So an 18-year-old with a gun walks down, or used to have a gun, walks down a street in Gaza, and you blow up the whole street and all the buildings, and you kill little babies and children and men and women who have nothing to do with it, but you got that Hamas fighter. That's still not justifiable. That's still a war crime. It's still horrific. International law is you cannot just bomb indiscriminately, killing innocent civilians and say, oh, well, we got the one guy. And of course, the U.S. has done this too and been caught for this as well. But been caught, not arrested, I don't mean, but they've been, various reporters have pointed it out, that, the U.S. we famously changed the definition of a civilian, of a combatant in Afghanistan. We changed it so that anyone of military age, any male of military age, counts as a combatant. So therefore, you could just bomb anywhere, and as long as you're hitting men of military age, didn't matter whether they were involved, whether they fired at you, whether they had anything to do with it. You can just blow them up. And so therefore, a lot less civilians were suddenly being killed by our drone bombs. Isn't that convenient? Anyway, all of this is to say that Galen Johnstone has a great point, and I think it's a pivotal point in the propaganda that we're being fed, that Israel had no idea Hamas was going to do this attack, but suddenly knows every pinprick of where Hamas is and is bombing only those areas. Bullshit on both regards. So I don't know. This stuff is so infuriating and so disgusting, and we're watching a genocide happen in real time, and we're just supposed to celebrate it and wave a flag and be excited about it. It's seeing so many people become the monsters that we thought we were fighting against, becoming the monsters that we said never again about, is really a sad state of affairs.